There is a certain beauty in the format of an album, an extended project of music that typically runs anywhere from 30 minutes to over an hour. In 2025, I have honestly found a whole new appreciation for albums. With the fast-paced, busy nature of our world today, listening through a whole album front to back can feel more challenging than ever before. So I made a real honest effort to try to listen through more albums than singles in 2025. I bought a brand new nice record player and some more vinyls. I spent some more intentional time just sitting through and listening through albums, and quite frankly, I loved doing so. I feel like every time I get around to doing this list, this being the 6th year I've done it now, I feel like I always say something like, this is the best it's ever been, and I probably typically wasn't really lying, but in 2025, the albums were on a completely new level. Based on my scores for the albums on this list, this is statistically the strongest top albums list I've ever done on this channel. Narrowing it down to just 10 was, indeed, harder than ever before. So without any further ado, here's my list for the top 10 EDM albums of 2025. There are some artists out there that have carved their own niche in such a way that their sound is so incredibly their own. Anytime you hear a specific synth or effect or bass line, your mind immediately goes to a certain artist. And it's even more impressive when they have the longevity to boot. We got the first real good taste of Emma Louise and Flume back in 2022's track Hollow, and from that point forward, I was pretty sold. Flume has always excelled with strong female vocalists, but Emma Louise provides more than just a strong vocal. Essentially the actual main artist on this collaborative record, Emma Louise's strong songwriting, art pop influences, and vocal work are the true backbone of this record, while Flume gets to come in and add his own wonky spice that spills everywhere across. I love how amongst all the wild and twisting turns of this record, there are so many moments of pure bliss, almost to the point of euphoria. And that's what I love the most about this album. Emma and Flume really play an intricate tug of war between intense highs and emotional lows in a way that hits all the buttons for me personally. Flume has been one of my favorite artists for many years, and while I'm not super familiar with Emma Louise, I just adore the art pop aesthetic that she provides, a genre I've been getting more and more acquainted with the past couple years. As an EDM enjoyer in specific, this album has a particular sound from Flume that I've been longing to see him return to in quite some time. Tracks like Shine Glow Glisten is an atmospheric wonky tune with those incredible highs, sobering lows, and all that classic crazy Flume to get you from one place to another. Easy Goodbye and Monsoon feel like those classic singles from this album with some of the more commercially viable palettes across this album, akin to the likes of the commercial breakout record in 2016's Skin. I'm in love with all this album has to offer. It's a brilliant pairing of two artists that so understand each other. I made a real effort in 2025 to listen to more emerging artists that don't really have the largest following, fan base, or commercial success, but ones that I believe are on par, if not ahead, of some of the more established artists in terms of quality. And I would say I did a pretty decent job in doing so, to the point where an emerging artist lands on a list like this. Neddie actually dropped 2 albums in 2025, with Passerby in January, which nearly landed on this list in its own right, and then just 6 months later with Neddie Online. This record has a super distinct sound design and style to it that feels grounded in the quality of modern EDM, but rooted in the general feeling of nostalgia, all wrapped in a layer of exquisite electropop. The time is now. This album has a lot of things going very right for it. It's a quasi-continuous record where some tracks flow into the next, while others just have a soft dissolve. Many of the tracks have an explosive turn in the final act that firmly place the record into that EDM territory, with glitchy complexora at the end of I Wish Haha, punching hardstyle on The Motions, and anthemic future bass on Where You Been, to close this whole thing out in just the perfect way. This is one of those albums where using genres are helpful to get the general feel of the record across to someone who hasn't heard it before, but generally doesn't do the record justice. Neddie Online is the definition of consistency and what it means to stick to a single unified vision. And while all the albums are great on this list, this is the one that I would encourage you the most to go check out. Neddie is a fantastic artist who deserves some more love. There is a fascinating thing that can happen to artists who have a signature and more specific sound profile. Sometimes artists love their own niche and stick firm to it. Other times they feel the need to break free a little bit and explore a whole new side of themselves. Within the EDM communities I'm a part of specifically, Skybreak has had a seemingly historic rise these last couple of years and has blossomed into one of the premier melodic dubstep and color-based artists. Bouncing around a few different labels with a few different styles of intensity, Skybreak really honed in his craft as a musician. But Half-Blood was more of an exploration of who he is himself. The title Half-Blood comes from Skybreak's familial and geographic roots in both the UK and America, making him a, well, half-blood. And he took that notion and infused it into this new era of sound that melds together the styles of American and European EDM palettes into a melting pot of dubstep, garage, color bass, and trap for an album that spans half the globe. Throughout this album, Skybreak is also taking us through a journey on his own subway system, another allegory to the New York City subway and the London Underground rail system, to the point where he even got the voice of the New York City subway announcements person, Bernie Wagenblast, to feature on the transitional track here, Vagabond.
Service is available across the platform. Thank you for riding Half-Blood.
I would, to some extent, call myself an EDM purist, and as an EDM purist, this record has a little bit of everything. It has the softer, more personal moments on tracks like Street Garden or Chrysalis, it's got the energized or frenzied tracks like Star Cannon and Red Hot Skull, and everything in between like the UK hip-hop infused Stone Cold or the aptly titled panic-inducing Anxiety. I love Skybreak as an artist and was so happy that this project landed the way it did. I think it had some brilliant branding, I love the quality of the record, and this new Half-Blood era for Skybreak might just be some of my favorite tunes of his yet.
Thank you for riding Half-Blood.
While Skybreak may have branched off to form a whole new path, sometimes it really is just best to expand upon what you do best. Kismet is another one of those artists with an incredibly unique sound palette that feels unequivocally their own. Typically blending together future bass, color bass, some wonky, and a lot of trap, Kismet's style was flashy and multicolored. And while I loved their debut 2022 album of Universe, I had the sense within the last couple years that it needed a little mix-up, and I definitely got that with their sophomore album, Saturate Your World. Rather than branching off into a whole new direction and changing their whole brand or sonic identity, Kismet took the heart of their music and just slightly shifted around the supporting elements, in this case being the song structure and foundational genres. That classic Kismet whimsy and awe are still ever present, but now we've got plenty of tracks with a more typical 4-on-the-floor beat. And I love it. Before this record, one of my biggest gripes with Kismet's sound was that it could often be too unpredictable and hard to groove with at times. But all those qualms have been quenched with this record, as Kismet keeps this bright color palette still very much intact, and just makes each track more infectious. It's almost as like there's a sneaky layer of disco covering this whole thing. At 15 tracks and just under an hour, there is no shortage of standout moments here, from the steadfast, more emotional final drop of Bitter, to the wonky techno on Tear You Apart, to the halftime finale on Y2K, and even the snappy, abrasive trap on Kaho. Each track has its own individual journey in itself, but also further curates a holistic campaign of color to truly saturate your world. While I firmly believe that EDM had a fantastic year in 2025, I don't think it would have been the same if it wasn't for the dominance of the EDM adjacent space. And what I mean by EDM adjacent is a project that has some pieces and elements of classic electronic dance music, genres like house, trance, drum and bass, but isn't an electronic dance music record by definition. So whether or not I include those on my list really comes down to how much I believe they fall into the umbrella category EDM. And I think this one, well, I think the Grammys got it right, in both that it is an EDM album and one of the best that 2025 had to offer. FKA Twigs comes out swinging in late January with the bombastic, sensual, erotic, and diverse record that is EUSEXUA. Equal parts art pop and EDM, EUSEXUA is a narrative-forward album that tackles Twigs' feeling of how exposed they are to the world in both a physical sense, but also more intimately on an emotional and spiritual sense. I first and foremost adore the production of this project that feels inherently 2000s EDM with big synth sustains and nostalgic trance melodies. This isn't your typical record by any aspect, and that's part of its charm. Within the nuances of this track list, it's got a heavy load of trance and dance pop and alt R&B, but also a fair amount of glitch pop, downtempo, and even some IDM. More than anything though, this album honors the sounds of the late 1990s and early 2000s trance movement in both the production and vocally. It's got that airy, ethereal, often angelic atmosphere that just takes over the soundscape. While it may not be the most commercially successful of the record, Striptease to me is the heart and soul of the album that doubles as the perfect representation of the project as a whole. It's an almost 5-minute journey of a track with those beautiful siren-like vocals paired with a monstrous 808 and trap-like hi-hats to usher us in through the first 2/3 of the record, only to morph into this anthemic, grandiose final movement where Twig shows off some of her most impressive vocal work ever. This album will without a doubt be the most, I would say, controversial pick for this list, and I know it's because of the mild backlash it got from being nominated for the Electronic and Dance Grammy, but when it's all said and done, this is a magnificent record with stellar production and lyricism that goes beyond your typical dance album. You may not agree with it deserving a spot on this list, but you have to at least recognize the beauty of it. And you know, there's this trick when it comes to writing and criticism where you say your most potentially upsetting thing, then immediately redirect it to something everyone agrees on so that they forget all about what you just said. Surprise, surprise, Skrillex has arrived. We all knew this was going to be here, and some of you were just waiting to see how high it was going to be on this list. But yes, to shock none of you here, Skrillex's "Fuck You, Skrillex, you think you're Andy Warhol, but you're not" heart is firmly one of the best records of the year. Embracing a continuous DJ mix structure to the album, this really isn't your typical project. 34 songs and 46 minutes in length, your average track here is only a measly 82 seconds. But we don't care, it's Skrillex, and he still got it. I strongly believe that this is a generational album that is both Skrillex's best, most cohesive project to date, as well as permission for more artists to explore an album format like this, where you release all the individual pieces of a singular DJ mix on official streaming platforms. And while the tracks may not lend themselves too kindly to individual listens, this is an albums list, baby. I don't give a damn if you're mad that Redline Dash is only 76 seconds long. This album heavily expands upon the foundation laid with Quest for Fire, that being the shift into a more trap-focused sound rather than continuing down the bro step trail. But more so than Quest for Fire, and because of the format in which it was released, this record honors all who Skrillex is as an artist up to this point. He's brought back beloved, long-lost IDs like San Diego and Voltage, and ushered in a whole new era of creativity and wonky cuts with tunes like Zeet Noise and Andy. This album truly has something for every kind of EDM enjoyer, both new and old, and further solidifies Skrillex's ability to be a premier producer that can evolve, adapt, and be an icon of consistent quality for EDM as a whole. This record had such an immediate impact on the EDM space that artists already jumped onto the genius that is this album format, a DJ set released as individual tracks on official streaming platforms. It's perfect for the space, and I look forward to hearing more projects like it. Actually, we did get another one just like it, and I actually think it's better. First and foremost, Space Laces has self-declared that this project lands somewhere between mixtape and album for him. And if I'm gonna include Skrillex, Space Laces should obviously get the same treatment. This is now his fourth run at the Voltage mixes, where Space Laces puts together a DJ mix of tracks that have been stuck in a vault, and I do absolutely believe that this format of record would not have been the same if it wasn't for Skrillex releasing something just earlier this year just like it. It gave him permission to do so. But when it's all said and done, I just think Space Laces is the stronger of the two. As an artist, Space Laces has been an icon of quality over quantity. We don't really get that many releases from him in a year, but we know that whatever we get, it's going to always be a brilliant piece of music. And even with that being said, this album is 32 tracks long. Everything felt like it was up to his consistently high standards despite that. Some of my personal highlight moments come from the glitchy trap aesthetics on Shaolin Fist, the poundy bass house from Worm Time with Eptic, the most insane Moonbaton track you'll hear on Stacks with Dylan Francis, and turning Marshmello into a god on Bomb, and the most true to his core sound climactic midpoint of the mix with the Anthem. What really sets this project apart from the rest, though, is Space Lace's attention to details in the mixing and mastering. His dubstep and bass house fusion style comes with a lot of heaviness and intensity, and it would get significantly more muddied with buried bass lines and distant percussion work if it wasn't in the hands of a master like Space Laces. I'm almost giddy with the thought of this becoming a new norm for the EDM space. I love this DJ mix style of an album with every song getting their own flowers. It's a format that got kicked off with a bang in 2025, and hopefully, I think will stay for many years to come. I love seeing an artist have a breakthrough year. Maybe they've just been around for a couple of years, maybe even longer, but they finally embraced that scary word, album. And everything just falls into place for them, both creatively and more so for their career. Ninajirachi definitely had a strong following of dedicated fans before 2025, but after the release of her debut record, I Love My Computer, she has exploded onto the scene as one of the fastest rising stars of the 2020s, period. This album is a love letter to early 2000s nostalgia, the EDM scene of the mid-2010s, and what it was like to be the generation that grew up and matured alongside the internet. This album spoke to me on a level I'm not sure I'll ever hear again. I was born in 1997 and grew up alongside the internet in pretty much the same exact way that Nina did. And I have not heard anyone articulate and express the feelings of the early internet in a way that she has on this album. The awe and wonder of having your computer call you by your name for the first time, causing you to figuratively and literally for some want to fuck your computer, hiding your iPod Touch with the Pikachu case under your pillow at bedtime so your parents don't see, and literally seeing a video of someone dying online because you could and you were curious and the internet was just the Wild West back then. There is so much in here that speaks to my childhood. But even if this album doesn't relate to you in a narrative sense, even if you remove all the vocals from this thing, the production itself is just a cut above the rest. Not often do we get full albums that hinge primarily on that electro house or complextro sound. It's a bit of a dying genre in terms of larger album formats like this. We just don't see enough of it here in 2025, and I'm glad we got this. In the end, I Love My Computer is a love letter to Nina's own childhood and the entire Y2K aesthetic. This is a debut record that has captured magic in a bottle. As the key demographic for this record, this album sent me back 2 decades in thought to a time I barely remember, yet I have a deep affinity for, even more so now. More often than not, you get an album that just dominates any given subgenre or holistic style to the point where nothing else really even comes close in the same calendar year, and I don't know, nothing really matches it. Boy, did we get that with drum and bass in 2025. And I'm feeling that choice in the way. Fox Stevenson has such a unique melding of D&B production and indie pop vocals that make him truly a one-of-a-kind producer. This sophomore album, Sunk Cost Fallacy, is without a doubt his best project yet. Every song here has a unique identity, yet stays true to the core sound of the overarching record. Fox is a one-of-a-kind producer with a one-of-a-kind sound, and this album is the best showcase of both. Sunk Cost Fallacy took over drum and bass in 2025, and in a year where the genre felt a little stale, at least to me, Fox proved that it's all really in the producer. At just shy of an hour in length and 14 songs long, this album might just be the best drum and bass record of the 2020s. Maybe all time? Nah, it's maybe too much. It'll be hard to find another D&B project with this much charm and charisma, though. We got 7 singles leading up to the release of this record, and this is probably the first time where each and every one of those felt like they were going to be the best one on the album. Every time a new one came out, I'm like, oh no, this is the best one. Pretty much all 14 tracks in total here are fighting for the limelight in honor of being called the best. That's just how insanely good this album is as a whole. Any gripes I may have had with Fox in the past were wiped clean with this record. His sometimes cheesy lyricism felt honest and real the whole way through. The indie pop edge he's got played a brilliant supporting role to the core drum and bass sound and didn't detract from it this time, and this is easily Fox's most complete vocal work on a project yet. Every single piece fell into place here for what is one of the best EDM albums of the 2020s. Just before we hop into my number 1 pick, I want to give some honorable mentions to EDM albums that were fantastic in their own right, but not quite top 10 worthy for me this year, and a couple of non-EDM albums that would have landed on this list if I didn't make it EDM exclusive. Because if it wasn't EDM exclusive, my number 1 album of the year is easily Quadeca's Vanisher Horizon Scrape.
Gas, my nigga, Mr. Postman. Maybe we can take it to the end of the line and see.
Looking back at 2025 holistically, I really think there was one singular album that dominated the space for me, and I'm sure for some of you as well. It's not your typical EDM project and really doesn't land in that EDM category as well, and is kind of that EDM adjacent, but man, the music is just so good, nothing else sounds like this. Jane Remover has quite simply put together a generational album that manages to be simultaneously in a genre of its own, while also becoming an essential listen within the genres of hip-hop, hyperpop, and EDM. Jane Remover quite simply does not yield across this track list. Intense production, a new sample every second, a new genre every movement, Jane Remover has found their sweet spot and at exactly the right time. I have no doubt that this album will be cited for years to come as having impacted the core sounds of the next wave of specifically underground producers. Angry Jane is peak Jane. "12 songs and just shy of 50 minutes in length, Jane Remover's Revengeseekerz could have easily been titled Samples the Album. It feels like every single second of this record is covered in some wild new sample. From the ever-present Palkia cry from Pokemon to the UI sounds of Fortnite and Guitar Hero to Run DMC to obscure TV shows to the announcer from Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. Nothing is sacred, everything has a purpose." While Revengeseekerz is very much a digicore album, a microgenre in which Jane Remover is essentially the face of, this album has a ton of moments that EDM fans will love, even if the hip-hop, hyperpop fusion is a little much for them. You've got the hypnotic bass house finale on Turn Up or Die, the insane hard dance on Professional Vengeance, to the electroclash on tracks like Dream Flasher or Angels in Camo. I'm not so worried about the legitimacy of this being a proper EDM album or not, because it's so good to the point where the conversation is just null and void to me. Plus, this is the kind of album we get when people don't really care about genres. Jane Remover doesn't make out to put together an EDM album or an experimental hip-hop album. They put together a project that they believe is just good. And boy, this is more than good. But that's been my list for the top 10 EDM albums of 2025. I'm so curious to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section below. But other than that, I'm Dakota from Bowtied Media, and I'll see you guys in another video.